Hello, everyone. Welcome to Get Out of Rap TV, the 75th show. Not to be confused with the podcast that you might have seen is approaching show 200. And I put a general shout out. I'd love to include all of you. If you want to be part of the 200th episode of Get Out of Rap, then all you've got to do is WhatsApp me a video like 20-30 seconds or a voice note just saying anything about the podcast that you like. Let me just put up my number and you can then send something to me if you want to be included in the 200th show, because it would be great to get as many people on as possible. Let me just scroll, go. There we go. That is the that is my number. If you want to WhatsApp me something, please do send a note by the end of this week, if possible, just about the Get Out of Rap podcast that is approaching the 200th show. So let me now, just first of all, before we get started, I couldn't do this show or any of my other content without my partners. And that, of course, is DDC Outsourcing Solutions, my platinum partner. I do a lot of stuff with them. DDC Discusses. Then we have Evaluagent. You might remember Rob did a great GOWX last week. OneCom, where Neris is doing a lot of work. A lovely Neris. And Katie Mansell and Nick. And, of course, Better, who joined me last week. wearebetter.com. I'm looking forward to doing some work with Rich. And I caught up with Phil Duggan. You may remember him the other week. Now, let's get on with the show and hear from you guys. So, say hello in the comments. And what app on your phone do you use the most? What app on your phone? Oh, look. Peter's here. Peter, good morning, Peter. And Peter is saying, it's on my to-do, mate. Yes, please do. You've got to be included, Pete. You've been on the podcast loads of times. Dan is here. Good morning, Dan. And please do, as a reminder, let's see if I can just edit this to get it to scroll across the bottom. If you want to be included in the 200th show for Get Out of Rap, the podcast, not this, because this is show 75, but if you'd like to be included in the podcast, then all you have to do is WhatsApp me a voice note or ideally a video, 20-30 seconds, where you just talk about the podcast and also anything you want, really. Here he is. Morning, LinkedIn, of course. Good morning, Gary, the wonderful Gary Gormley of Fab Solutions, and also some high network. What's the high performance thing you're doing? Paul's here. Hey, folks. Paul from Webbia here. First time here. The app I use the most is Twitter X, I am ashamed to say. Oh, don't be ashamed, Paul. And it's great to have you join for the first time. Joe is here. Good morning, Joe. What's app for me? Love the new profile pic, by the way, mate. So Gary, of course, is saying LinkedIn. I would say that's mine too. That and the BBC Sport. Always check the gossip. The transfer gossip. Peter is saying Facebook, Spotify, LinkedIn, and Calm. Yeah, Calm is a great one, Peter, isn't it? Oh, Sarah's here. Had a catch up with Sarah yesterday. Was it yesterday? What is the app that you use the most? Paul Sweeney, one of us. You're now in the cult, Paul. There's no escape. You have to come more often now. Dan says, sadly, I use my work Teams and Outlook the most. I often say to my family, if they see me on my phone, that I'm working from my phone, right? You know, that you can pretty much do everything. I could do this show from my phone. Sarah says, WhatsApp and Insta for me. Yeah, we had a great catch up yesterday, didn't we, Sarah? It's great to a legend of our industry, Sarah is. Yes, Paul, that's it now. You're in the cult. We'll talk to you about the indoctrination process. Morning. I hope you're having an amazing Tuesday, Marianne. Lovely Marianne from the Verity Center. The main app has to be linked in WhatsApp and Waduku. What's Waduku? Is it like Sudoku? What is that? What is the app that you use the most? Marianne's thrown a new one into the mix. Yeah, mine's definitely LinkedIn, followed by BBC Sport, I would say. WhatsApp, of course. I'm in far too many groups. But yes, please do WhatsApp me a video. Sarah, I know, has done one. I know a lot of you here have said you're going to do one. If you can do them by the end of the week, because we'll be on 197, I think. So getting chance to get everyone's videos and voice notes in, edited into the 200th show. We did. Always good to catch up on all the gossip. Never enough time. Perhaps we should do a whole show all about gossip. Because come on, our industry is very well known for gossip, isn't it? There's always, I have to admit, it was one of the things I used to tell my team leaders is it's very dangerous to get involved in gossip. It's very tempting, I know, but you're best avoiding it. You can listen, do not comment. Do not comment. You could find yourself in hot water. And you could also, even though I say listen, you could also find yourself having knowledge that you really wish you didn't know, because you might have to act on it. But from an industry point of view, yeah, fill your boots. We all love a good gossip, don't we? As a little bit of a reminder, if your comments are not showing, for me here, I'm not ignoring you. All you have to do is refresh LinkedIn. Sometimes the connection between LinkedIn and StreamYard, which is the platform I use, doesn't always get through. I promise you, I'm not ignoring you. I couldn't think of anything worse. So we've got a pretty. I think WhatsApp probably is the main one. It's interesting, isn't it? I know some of you are saying Teams, Outlook, and things like that. Are there any work, contact center related apps? There is an app for the team leader community which I use, and I know a lot of people within the community use. But are there many other apps? I know the forum have an app which is really good, but you don't see too many, do you, for our industry? Um, Now then, what have I missed? Marianne, thank you. It's kind of like Sudoku, but with wood blocks. It's very relaxing. That's great. I imagine you use that a lot on the train, do you, Marianne? You always seem to be on a train, either taking selfies or were you playing? Now we know you're either working or playing Waduko. Hey, Rach is here. Hi, Rachel. Hey, hey. Hey, hey, indeed. It's great to see you. Whether you have been here for most of the shows or you are brand new, please do say hello in the comments. And maybe if you're not already, let's connect with each other, because it's the power of connection and community that gets us to where we want to go to, isn't it? Now then, the question of LinkedIn and sometimes solitaire. Oh, yeah. So a lot of these apps are very relaxing, aren't they? Solitaire. Do love a game of solitaire, or patience, as my family used to call it. Morris is here. Good morning, Morris. Morris, your Gout X, by the way, still getting loads of views, which is testament to the interesting content that you produce. But it's great to see you. What is the app that you use more than any other, Morris? Now, we are going to go into the question of the day. And over the week, I speak to a lot of team leaders, especially, but a lot of senior leaders. I've had a good couple of calls this morning that were very interesting and very relevant to what will be our question for the day. It's been a while, hasn't it? I know our sense of time has been bent by the pandemic, but that was a good few years ago now. Are you seeing more of a return to agents working in the contact center? whether that is new hires, whether it is people that were working from home, are they coming back? What are we seeing out there? Is it still a split? Or are we seeing people coming back into working in the contact centers rather than working from home? And what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? Is this good for morale and engagement, or are we forcing people to come back when actually they're more productive and happier at home? And hybrid and the offer of hybrid is a really good thing. Certainly, from what I am hearing and the people I am talking to, there seems to be a gentle return of more and more people coming back to working in contact centers. Some gave up the concept. They had leases due and they just thought, you know what, we're fine, and we're going to let people carry on working from home. Our productivity has gone up, our retention's great, absence is great, so why change it? But what are you seeing? For those of you that are out and traveling, you must get a sense of this. For those of you that run contact centers or are in contact centers right now, what are you seeing? Are we seeing more people coming back? Are we Is it still the same? Has it not changed from the pandemic? Or and I haven't heard this, but maybe this is happening. Actually, the numbers of people working from home are increasing. So, our question for the day, our talking point for today is: Are people back in? Are people coming back into the contact center? I would love to get your opinion on this. And whilst you are typing, I'm just going to have a sugar-free monster. Now, here we go. Sarah's kicking us off. Thank you, Sarah. I know a couple of companies in Manchester that very recently have mandated back to the office 5 days a week. And that's really interesting, Sarah, because again, I've heard the same kind of thing. There seems to be a bit of a groundswell of people saying, right, come back in now. Um, we want you back in the office, working from home, not so much. Gary, Super Gary Gormley, it's really interesting. I've seen some that never adopted the remote model outside of furlough, but there's definitely a desire for people to return, a desire for people to return. It's interesting. I wonder what is driving this then. If this is this what others are seeing as well. So Sarah and Gary kicking us off here with their observations, which would kind of match mine. And I don't want to create groupthink, but I would love to know what you are seeing. Are you seeing, like myself, Gary, and Sarah, a return to work, a mandated return to work? I wonder how well that has gone down. And Sarah, did you get a sense of whether that had been well received? Or, of course, people save time and money in not having to commute. Um, Gary, Gary, don't worry. Gary Gormley, my dodgy typing. Um, oh wow, Irina is here. Irina Valcheko, the CEO of the Ukrainian Contact Center Association and an absolute star of our industry. And we all send our support and love to you all in Ukraine. A real heroic story of people carrying on in our industry despite the most atrocious events happening there. But let's see what Irina says. In Ukraine, many agents have returned to call centers because it's easier to provide them with electricity centrally, but they don't work there all the time, only a few times a week. What a fascinating consideration, and one that we in the UK are certainly lucky not to have to even consider. So, our thoughts and our support are always with you. And of course, despite the war, the Ukraine is still very much a place where you should consider outsourcing. Was at the top of the tree for technology and skills and multilingual. Now more than ever, we should show our support. Irina, it's great to have you here. Um, Dan says our office footprints for agents is approximately 10 to 15% daily, with the remainder working from home. This is Dan Britton, but have the choice to come in whenever they want. Every few months, team meetings are held in the office to encourage in person collaboration, which I think is really important. We're not mandating, but encouraging occasional in person team togetherness, and feedback has been very positive. What a great approach, Dan, that you have there. That is, I would say, on the money. Paul, Paul Sweeney, does anyone know if agents are asking for or looking for a return to the contact center? Great question, Paul. Certainly a question that I've posed in the team leader community, and there is, I would say, a desire for flexibility. Now, of course, that can mean quite a bit of work from a planning point of view because everyone's idea of what flexibility looks like is different. Indeed, we had a question in the community the other day about rota days at home. And of course, everybody wants a Monday or a Friday. How do you manage that so it's equitable and fair, but also doesn't impact your performance levels? But very, very good question. Um, so Pete Dunn of BPA Quality, absolute star, says, seeing a real range across clients and network. Positively, quite a few are looking to offer flex and balance, which I think is um, ideally what we want. We want to attract talent in, don't we? And this surely is a positive. Gary Gormley says, I was having a conversation recently about the challenges remote working poses within training and onboarding with inductions. It impacts the speed to competence of the team and the connections to the company. So, so true. And I guess that is something that certainly personally, I would have struggled. I don't know if I'd still be in the industry if my experience had been solely remote, because it was my colleagues, my teammates, the buzz of the contact center that hooked me in right at the start, and maintains this passion to this day. And would I have had that if everything was remote? Personally, and just how I operate, I don't think so. And indeed, as a team leader, so much of what I did was based on viewing people's body language, sensing the energy in the team. And I think team leaders today have a real challenge. Um, Now, Sarah, Sarah Hunt, in answer to that question, and congratulations, Sarah, by the way. Sarah is at DDC, which is just perfect. So we will be doing a lot together. Lots of backlash at first, but they've launched a new flexible policy, which means you can ask to work from home when you need to for things like deliveries or if you need to dog sit for a friend, etc. But they want to encourage collaboration. And the second time that key word has been mentioned, Pete Dunn, flip side, and in response to Paul Sweeney, I'm on a number of forums on Reddit. Oh, that's interesting, Peter. Etc. Most discussions are focused on being forced, regression of flexibility. On-site expectation is generally going up, not down. And that would be, so we seem to all be hearing the same thing. Irina, thanks a lot, Martin, for the help, understanding, even for PR. Anytime, honestly, we are all right behind you. It was heroic tales coming from all the contact center workers in the Ukraine. So Slava Ukraini. Spencer. Now, Spencer has been so helpful both to the community and to me personally. As Spencer has noted there, Spencer is deaf. And he is doing a great job in promoting how we show up for our deaf customers. So please do check Spencer out, Spencer Collins. Similar to the wild ride at CrowdStrike, brace yourself for a wave of real folks flooding back into the contact center, says Spencer. Get ready for some epic GOW action blowing in with the wind. Yes, we're always here, whether you're at home or in the contact center. Get Out a Wrap is always here. Dan Britton replying to Paul Sweeney. Those who have asked due to home facilities personal mental health and well-being, etc., have been accommodated within our office. Love it. Others who can be, uh, others who ask can be accommodated as we have a remote desk booking app available 24/7. Oh, you're not anywhere near Oxfordshire, are you, Dan? I would love some remote desk work. And Paul Sweeney replies to Pete Dunn. Pete Dunn, I think flexibility is a great frame for this. Getting to competence is another question. I wonder if co-pilots and having initial training on co-pilot conversations are a way to expedite that learning. Great point. I had a chat with someone, Phil Duggan, actually, yesterday about co-pilot and how certainly he's seen the speed to competency increase by that in-call co-pilot interventions. And I guess that doesn't matter whether you are working from home or in a contact center. Marianne Withers says, I think it's according to the industry and type of work with contact centers. There does seem a trend for people being asked back to the office. There has been an increase of mental well-being issues with people working from home on the front line, since more and more simple calls are being moved to AI. And therefore, the frontline people are handling more difficult complaint calls and finding it really challenging. Therefore, some organizations believe it's better to have them on site. Yes, very good consideration there, Marianne. Are we cutting off support to people? Gary Gormley says, I've seen more outbound contact centers being more together for that point around connection and buzz. Slightly different operating models for inbound versus outbound and the buzz you need to stay motivated. Again, another great consideration. Morris Pentel says, it is in some ways easier and in other ways more difficult to manage people remotely. I am sometimes asked to help make digital and remote channels work better and help train managers to use the digital tools better. We can have great digital relationships, but it is a matter of design, and these tools can enable that. Great, that's brilliant. Sarah Hunt, me too, Martin. I don't think I'd have stayed in contact centers if I had to work from home full time. I need the buzz of people. I see a little bit of it when my kids, 22 and 19, work from home for a few days. They tend to get low mood and don't enjoy the job as much. Agree, it's all about giving people flexibility. You know, yeah, true, Sarah. My own son, and with one of his uni summer jobs, worked from home within our industry and was pretty isolated, I would say. It's not nothing against the company he worked for, it's just the nature of the job. Spencer, from Def Spencer, do you believe that the new Labour government would prioritise human contact centre over AI, making it easier for people to return to them? Very good consideration. I'm toying with the idea of doing some offshoot get out a rap on politics and things like that. I'm so interested in it. It's a very interesting question. I do not know the answer to that, but it's one to watch with interest, Spencer. Paul Sweeney says, Marianne Withers, great point. Gary Gormley, I think the challenge with speed to competence is also linked to the technology stack. So true. And the agent assist tools, quality of the knowledge base and use of Slack tools, Teams, etc., to bridge that communication gap. I also think it's linked to PCI challenges too, and the level of security and regulations required. Yes, and I think Marianne made that point, Gary, didn't she, around it's going to be different based on the industry vertical you are in. And in the read along, there's actually some things that we're going to be talking about about ID&V and things like that, which are a consideration, aren't they? We spoke in the team leader community this week around trust is a big element, and if you don't feel that you are trusted working from home, it's going to create a whole new set of challenges. I think we can see from productivity stats that working from home works, but I think the general sense of the comments here, I'm in agreement with. You need that collaboration, you need that in-person connection to build team spirit and a connection to the company values and to remind you of your why. Why are you doing the work? As Morris Pentel just says here, It can be isolating working from home, especially when the job is a high stress one like collections. And yes, I did collections. There's no way I would have done collections working from home solely. No way. My teammates around me helped you cope with every single call. And that could just be with a funny look, taking your mind off things, asking you about the call you just had, asking if you were okay. And that in the physical, in the moment connection got me through that. I always think if you can do well in collections, you can do well in anything. Please do keep these questions coming. Sorry, questions. Please do keep these responses coming. Um, Pete Dunn says, Paul Sweeney, I think there's still some challenges in the use of Gen AI in that space. AS, an advice next best action tool or a virtual assistant, pretty good. But support for emotion management and flex of context is poor. And I think we need to be training EI, very true, emotional intelligence, interaction skills, motivation, etc., to upskill our advisors to deal with complex interactions. And of course, Pete, you make such a good point because training in EI will also help with the fact that you could be working on your own for long periods and understanding what that means and how to cope with that resilience and positive mindset. All of these things fall into EI, don't they? And Paul agrees with Pete. Yes, it's early days there, but as we know, the development of this technology in our space is, give it a few weeks and we'll be talking about how things have moved on so much because none of this stuff is ever going to be this bad. It's only getting better week by week. Gary Gormley says, we've also got to be mindful of the vulnerability that is heightened when we don't have that social connection and the lack of in-person observations of mood. So true, Gary. I think it's great that working from home has opened up a whole new pool of workers that might have been precluded in the past from being able to work in a physical contact center, whether that's geographically or because of their own personal circumstance. So that's great. But then we have to be mindful of the fact that they could become, or they could be in vulnerable positions, and we might not be as quick to recognize that if they are remote. So as Dan Britton seems to be doing, that kind of nuanced, sensitive, flexible approach seems to be what we should be aiming for. But what a topic. What a topic this is. Very interesting to see how this is going to play out. And but the general mood seems to be that more and more people are coming back. From Def Spencer, Pete Dunn, my worry about Generation AI is their lack of an emotional connection and empathy towards vulnerable callers. There is still a long journey ahead. So true. So true. Yeah, please do keep these comments coming because it is such an interesting topic. Now, tomorrow, will you be joining me in the break room, the second ever audio event that I'm doing? So you don't have to see my bald, shiny head, but it will be an audio event. And to start with, so it's tomorrow, Wednesday, the 24th of July, 12 until 1 here on LinkedIn. Just please come in and listen, or as 6 or 7 people did not last week, the week before, join in. It would be great to have your input. We are going to be talking about academies, grad bays, call them what you will, but we're going to start with just talking about how you run an academy. So that first step for people getting staggered onto live connections and chats and calls with customers. It would be great if you could join, as is the case, as was happened last week, the week before. We probably won't stay on that topic for too long, but it would be great if you can join. Just head to my profile and you'll see in events that the break room is there and you can join. You can say that you're going to attend. It would be great to see you on what is only the second ever show. Let me just pick up another couple of comments. Marianne says, personally, I don't like working from home, but that's me. I like being surrounded by people, always have done. I find it very isolating at home. Marianne, I'm with you, but I'm in the weird position of working from home 90% of the time. A certain furry friend that you all know, probably. I can't say his name because he'll think it's time for his you know what, another word I can't say. But he is pretty restrictive. But like you, I like being around people, and I do not like that there is an onus on you to do housework as well. So that's a whole other topic. We can get into that another point, another time. Paul Sweeney says Spencer Collins that Gen AI needs specialist fine tuning, Spencer, and needs to have guardrails, etc., put in. Not talking about off the shelf Gen I from OpenAI, etc. Good consideration there, Paul. Thank you. So yes, please do join me in the break room if you can tomorrow. Dip in, stay in, and talk. I'm also now just quickly before we get to one of your favorite parts of the show. I've got a request. Can you advocate for the team leader community? Do you know of contact centers that would benefit from their team leaders or aspiring team leaders from joining this community with just under 400 members? I spend most of my time in there. Many of you I can see, certainly Peter, Spencer, you are also in the community, but we are helping team leaders and aspiring team leaders every single day. I only ever use LinkedIn and my connections as a way to generate interest in the team leader community. So, do you know of contact centers or people who would benefit from being in the team leader community? And I'm asking, can you help me get in touch with them? I would love to be able to show people what the community is about and get as many people in there as possible because we are helping people daily. So that is a shameless call out for help. Now then, let me just get back to some more comments on our topic. Pete Dunn says Spencer Collins. I know a lot of people are concerned about AI, but I'm excited about the potential. Some of the pushback is about it's replacing people and the dangers of reducing empathetic interaction. But once we start to understand a more stabilized and sustainable approach to AI, built for purpose as opposed to people just having a go, we'll see significant improvements. Um, Rachel, love your post, Martin. Oh, thanks. And that's Rachel Schaefer. Thank you very much. Marianne Withers, Wave Wave, says, let's rally the Gow squad and party it up with Super Martin leading the charge as our top-notch boss. Spencer, I'm assuming that's you. Hi, Spencer, says Rachel. Sarah says, wow, 400, that's amazing. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, it's been going since last February, so we're 18 months now, I think. Gary, thank you very much. It's an awesome resource. Gary, he will hate me for saying this, I think, but he kindly pays a subscription for one of our most prominent members in the community, and that's because, as you've said here, Gary, team leaders need love too, and you're a big, big advocate of team leaders. Pete Dunn says, always happy to rock up and do masterclass. I can still just about remember how baffled and scared I was after my magic weekend saw me switch from analyst to manager. Yeah, so true. And Pete, your masterclasses and your general help have always gone down really well in the team leader community. Thank you all very much. Rachel is saying hi to Gary Gormley as well. This is what it's all about. Say hi to everyone. I'll tell you what else it's all about. We do love a VT, don't we? So it is time for another VT. It's the read along. We are, as you know, going through Contact Babel's UK Contact Center Decision Makers Guide for 2024. It is the Bible, I would say, of everything to do with contact centers. They survey over 400 contact center leaders and 1,000 customers, just over 1,000 customers in this case, to get some of the stats we are going through. Now, we are on page 159, and we are looking at the use of desktop automation software by vertical market. Now, you can see that those in insurance, outsourcing, and utilities are most likely to report using desktop automation, RPA, with fewer respondents in housing, manufacturing, and transport and travel doing so, probably as a result of their typically smaller contact center size. So you can see here the extent to which people have desktop automation and they don't want to replace it, or they use it and they are looking to replace it. They don't have it, but they're going to implement it, or they have no plans to implement it. And as you can see in manufacturing, no plans to implement is at 64%. Now, is desktop automation something that you use? Now, Pete is talking about the team leader community. It's a resource I recommend to everyone I talk to. Oh, thank you, mate. The value of the content, if you had to buy it as separate training, would be prohibitive. There's loads of experts sharing their knowledge and experiences in there. So true. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, desktop automation. You can see the average is 31%. Pete is saying mine's a Malbec next time we catch up. Now, you know what happens to me when I have Malbec. It's my quickest taxi to oblivion. But I love it. So there's a conundrum there. But yes, of course, I think I've got a delay. Well, so average 31% of the respondents say they do use desktop automation. 43% though said they had no plans to implement it. So I guess they do not see the benefit. Now, moving on, we're now getting into an interesting area. And this, I guess, does relate to something, Gary, you mentioned around that kind of working from home concept. And this is from 2010 up to 2023. What we're looking at here is a chart that shows the proportion of calls requiring caller identification and the average time taken to do that. Now, what is really interesting here, although in-call efficiency is improved, identity verification is slower than it has ever been over the past decade. The survey found consistently that around 60 to 70% of calls require identity checks, which take considerably longer due to more stringent testing. A rise in the length of authentication, that's right, yeah, authentication, 90% increase in the rise of the length of how long it takes to identify someone since 2010. So in 2010, 60% of calls required caller ID, and it took 23 seconds to identify that caller. Now, or in 2023, 76% of calls required ID&V, but the average time taken to do that was 44 seconds. So I'm just going to let that sink in for a bit, because I imagine you have got some things to say about that. A steep increase actually since 2020. 2020 it was 34 seconds to get somebody through ID&V. The average now is 44 seconds. What is this due to? It's hard to say, and it doesn't actually say in the report itself. Is it due to an increase in fraud? You would think there's something going on here, that we see greater technology, a greater level of technology. We're smarter now, aren't we? Yes, there are more people and more types of calls that require ID&V. And maybe it's that. Maybe we're asking for ID&V now more often than not. Whereas perhaps before it used to be in predominantly financial services or other verticals where there was a lot of regulatory oversight, whereas now it's pretty standard. But why is it taking so much longer than it did in 2010 to get people through ID&V? And we also know, don't we, from going through this report, that the number one frustration for customers is, I want you to answer me quickly and deal with my concern quickly and efficiently. Why is it then that we seem to be going the other way, just getting customers over that first hurdle? What do we think? I'm sure we're going to have a lot of comments on this, unless I've lost you all through the connection. No, Morris is kicking us off. Morris Pentel. Um, it is much more complex. Um, the actual process of ID&V is more complex, Morris. Is that what you're saying, or just um, the fact that we actually need it in the first place, or how customers are showing up? Um, this is interesting, says Gary Gormley. I think the levels of cyber risk is driving more compliance around ID&V, although it'd be interesting to understand the split of IVR-based ID&V versus the agent-led ID&V. Now, I think we can get to that. So, 92% of respondents who authenticate identity do so through human means. Respondents that use IVR or speech recognition also use the agent to double check in some instances once the call is passed, wasting the caller's time and increasing the contact center's costs. So, to your point, it 92% of the respondents that led to these results here are using agents to ID&V. Those that are using IVR, speech recognition, or voice biometrics, and this is 10% or less than 10%, are then having a double whammy and saying that the majority of them then ask the agent to double check, which I think we've kind of all experienced as consumers, right? Yes, says Morris, the process is more complex, connecting more than 25 different type of systems as opposed to what's your mum's maiden name. Yeah, very true. That's going to drive AHT up, and the lack of CRM integrations drive duplication of effort. Very, very true. Pete Dunn says, I've seen a number of brands who have taken their IVR ID&V out and placed it back in the hands of their advisors. I think in some instances it was a rather lazy response to GDPR and then consumer duty. Now, Pete, you raised the whole point's great, but you raised two key things here that have happened in this timescale that we're looking at, and that is GDPR and then consumer duty. Consumer duty more recently, GDPR might attribute to that rise that we see from certainly 2016. It's gone up from 32 seconds to what we saw in 2023, 44 seconds. So greater emphasis on regulations. As Morris says, more complexity. And as Gary pointed out, asking agents to do this more complex process is adding time. More customers require ID&V, and we are taking longer to do it. And there's nothing that says that trend is going to dip unless you are seeing things out there that people are doing to get across this quicker. Now, Matt Smallman, who has regularly commented here and has written a book on contact center security, let's say, then covers things like ID&V, will have a view that we are doing it. Not only are we doing it taking longer, but we're doing it badly, and there's better ways of doing it. So what an interesting topic this is. Now, that I have got other slides, but as always is the case, I've waffled on a bit. Now, Paul Sweeney says, we've seen a lot of companies use messaging chat to do ID&V. That's interesting, Paul. The customer fills out the conversational forms. The answers that can be pulled from CRM checks, etc., can also be done, and the agent can see the result on screen. Now, this, I guess, is bringing together the best of different channels, new technology, and giving them to the agent in a manner in which that they can actually do something with it to the benefit of the customer. Because when we look at this graph, you can't say that this is to the benefit of the customer, or maybe you can, because actually it's keeping their data safe. Um, what an interesting topic this is, though. Now, uh, Danny Wareham's here, massively late. We'll grab the catch up. Now, Danny, because you're normally top of the class, we're going to let this one slide. Danny Wareham of Fergun, wonderful human being, all about culture. It would have been great. Well, on the catch up, you can still add your comments in here later for others to see. As well as catching it on LinkedIn, you can also catch it on my YouTube channel. I sound like a 16-year-old saying that, but there is a YouTube channel where I put this, and it will also be audio will be converted into Get Out a Rap podcast. Now, Gary Gormley says two-factor identification can also impact the AHT, which is a more recent innovation. Very true. And Pete Dunn replies to Paul Sweeney, everyone should do this. Take away the admin, cognitive load, and the risk. Let advisors focus on delivering the interaction outcomes. Yes, and you do all those things, and we should see an increase in customer experience and the relevant customer satisfaction scores, which we know have been dropping for our industry. So I think you guys need to be in charge of our industry, right? That is the way that we're going to do this. Well, this has been the 75th show of Get Out a Rap TV. As I said at the outset, if you would like to contribute to the 200th show of the Get Out a Rap podcast, and Gary Gormley has done a great video. Thank you for that, my friend. All you have to do is WhatsApp me a voice note or a video of yourself talking. I will be putting all of those together for a monster 200th show of Get Out a Rap, the podcast, and it would be great to include as many of you as possible. As always is the case, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience and your opinions. I think it is, Gary says, my pleasure. Thank you, mate. Let me just catch up here. Paul Sweeney says, Pete Dunn, it will be easier and easier over time as things like ID in your Apple Wallet gets more deeply integrated into Flow. Yes, the sooner that happens, the better. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, a wonderful week. There is no show next week. I'm going to give myself a week off, but there will be a show the following week, the following Tuesday, and that'll be the first show of August, the 76th show of Get Out a Rap TV. I hope you can join me then. There will be no show next Tuesday, but there will be the following Tuesday after that. So plenty of time to get your thoughts in. If there's anything you'd want to see on this show, please do let me know. And thank you all very much. It has been a pleasure as always. And now is time to run VT. Thank you all. Have a lovely rest of the day.